Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is May 14th, 2024, and my voice almost cracked when I was trying to get that out. All right, you might notice something a little bit different in today's video if you are a regular viewer of the recorded videos and or live streams. And that is we've got a naked chart here. And we have a few areas of interest on Bitcoin as it is in a bit of a consolidation. You can tell this by looking at volume. This volume drop off in the context of a bull market is telling us that this is going to likely resolve fairly soon. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to resolve to the upside. It could resolve to the downside first and then resolve to the upside. So let's go ahead and see if we can't find some areas of interest locally to be watching over the course of the remainder of this week into next week. And it's pretty darn simple. For those of you who already do a bit of TA, you'll know that this is a higher low. And let's go ahead and just mark these in yellow, not green. But at 60,150, we have a higher low swing. The next area to take out to the upside to break this downtrend, which this is one of the few times you are going to see a trend line from me. And we can see that there's a clear downtrend here. No, this is not a triangle. If anything, you could make a case for this being a falling channel. But in this case, we can see that the next area to take out to the upside here would be that 65,523 on spot price. So this does give us a pretty good bias that if Bitcoin were to break down from this 60,150 low, then it's more than likely going to be testing somewhere around this lower low structure, possibly in and around these wick lows into the monthly zone there that I'm going to show you in just a moment. For those of you that are regular viewers, you already know what I'm talking about. But in this case, we have a big zone of interest to the upside. We have a zone of interest locally right around where price is. And then, of course, we have the lower low. If the lower low is taken out at any point, I would be looking for, a bit lower initially, and then we need to see if it was just a swing or if, price just kind of nukes through it. This lower low is coming in at 56,500, and you can see from this naked chart here that the very next area of support and resistance is coming in right here at $53,000 to the low side structure here around 50,500. I would give it some room for a bit of a swing down below there if price did head that way. But there are some moving averages and some Bollinger Band areas of interest along the way, even right around the current lower low structure. So the reason why I bring this up is because when you take a look at a very simplified chart like this, it's very clear what is occurring with price. Yes, there is support areas locally still that Bitcoin is hanging on to right around the current low side of the range. There's even a very nice order block candle here on the daily that Bitcoin has been hanging out in and kind of going sideways, quite frankly, from wick to wick. We've got the wick there at 60,335, the wick low rather, and then the wick high here coming in at around 63,675. And you can see that's kind of right where price has been trading since realistically. I mean, it got in here, it closed in here on Tuesday of last week and has remained here ever since. So when you see price action like this is usually indicative of, players positioning for a larger move with, temporary hedges on both sides. But in general, this is still a bull market. This is not just in general a bull market, but, positioning short at the highs here, even locally, give you some downside protection, positioning long, even locally, and then building lower is typically what you're going to see some of the bigger players doing. Not financial advice, of course. This is just me describing what some players in this game are doing currently. But I did want to just point out that, potential higher low, higher high structure, we have something new going on. And I'm going to throw on the first indicator here that of the indicators that I'm going to show. And this is a swing chart. There's plenty of swing indicators on TradingView in the indicators tab up here. You can just search for swing chart or swings, and you'll see quite a few. I do suggest you look for just something simple. But you can see the first swing lower high, the first swing trend change within this wider overall structure even came in on well, that was the 18th of March. So it's been going about 60 days. This from swing to current price action here, we're at 58 days, almost 60. So from that swing high that was actually put in, when it was locked in was the very next candle. So you could call that, confirmation. It's been 57 days. So 60 days of kind of going, down and sideways. A few tries back up to the highs here for some retests, even a nice swing higher low structure before putting in a lower high and then heading down to the downside support area to swing the actual monthly quarterly. So let's go ahead and get into that actually. We can see that I have to buy time by making small talk until I can turn on this. And that would be the actual support and resistance. And this is historical support and resistance. Now, I've gotten a few questions about this from some people who understand trading and some newer people as to why I use historical support and resistance and why aren't I using some of the more recent pivots on the monthly, on the most recent quarterlies, stuff like that. And the main reason why is because Bitcoin has not cleanly broke out of prior cycle support and resistance areas. Once it does cleanly on a monthly and higher term time frame, then we will be referencing the most recent support and resistances, as well as when it's in a blue sky, a lot of fibs. So a lot of fibs and volatility bands to kind of help understand where price is going. In this case, I bring this up because we can see that, Bitcoin didn't really have anything local here. It's all historical. There are some closes that came in around these areas, yes, on the weeklies in terms of close opens, but we don't have any clear swing or closing structures outside of this current structure and then this previous structure, which was a swing high, swing low in the weekly. So referencing these prior cycle support resistance areas is going to be key until we do see a clean breakout from them. And even then, they're still going to be relevant if Bitcoin were to come back to them anytime, soon. In this case, October of 2021, monthly close is coming in at 61,350, and we see that Bitcoin is trying to put in a low around this monthly zone. Did dip in for some liquidity. We need to see Bitcoin closing above around 63,400 to 500. What was yesterday's, or not yesterday's now, this was Monday, 63,456. So around 63,500. I need to see a closure above there to begin looking up to around $64,000 at this lower high and around that 65.5 spike into the April of 2021 monthly swing high at $65,000. So this was a rejection. We did see, Bitcoin traded above it, but this has been a heavily rejected area. And this was the first, quote unquote, first all-time high in 2021. It really was an all-time high. It even had a swing, and not just a swing at 65, but also a closing high on the monthly. So it was the first real all-time high, coming in at $65,000. That has been holding price down, save for, three. We had a close and two opens above it. Actually, no, we got that open right on 65 and then a pump up. So you had three close opens basically above it. And, since then has been holding price down for quite a long time now. If Bitcoin can recover $64,000, I would expect $65,000 to get tested to somewhere around this swing high at 65.5. If we do start seeing a medium-term time frame like a daily, below a daily rather, not like a daily, that's still a medium-term time frame, but in the context of like a weekly. But in this case, we're looking at something like a 4 or 6 hour as it relates to the daily. Then I would be looking up a bit further. We do have around $66,000. We've got 65.5 is spiked into this low right over here. This low is coming in from the 2nd of April into the 3rd of April before it was actually set. And then just above there, you can see that Bitcoin tried to swing into some of the candle structures over here. at around that 67, $66 to $67,000, with the high coming in at 67 2 to 300 depending on your exchange. That meaning if Bitcoin does close a 4-hour candle above around 65.5, the next big areas would be around 66 to $67,000 by this high. And if we do start to see closures above there, around 67 2 to 300 on a medium term time frame below the daily, like a 4 or 6 hour, that then lead into the daily, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to have already either run up to around 68 to $70,000 by the prior cycle high at 69, so giving it some room there, to possibly, if it has not already hit that area, to go ahead and head into test around 68 to $70,000, and then of course above there, looking around 70 to 73. This wick high coming in just shy of 73, and then above there, the all-time high and higher to around 75 to $76,000 initially in the lower term timeframes. But we can gauge kind of where things would find some resistance confluence with the Bollinger Bands here, as they do give us levels for the volatility. If Bitcoin can remain above the lower first, of course, that would be the equivalent of holding this higher low structure on a swing. That's coming in at around 60,500. Don't really want to see any kind of daily closures below the lower first on the daily, because that would give us the target right back down to around the lower second, which, I do still think it would have some opportunity, but in and around $58,800 to $59,000 here by the lower second. If we did start to see any closures below there, then I'd be looking for expansion into this lower low. Now, there is some confluences that I'll be showing you in just a moment here when we look across time frames, but realistically, this area can get swung around the mid $50,000 as long as price gets bought back above it aggressively and then regains this March of 2021 monthly close where the current lower second standard deviation on the Bollinger Bands is. Around that $58,800 to $59,000, and then subsequently start closing back above where Bitcoin is trading right now, around that 61,350 area. That's when, I think that we can take something like a $53,000 to $50,000 off the table here, and that's that September of 2021 weekly swing high down to the August and December closing highs from 2021 that Bitcoin previously had found resistance this year in February, and then also found that area as support before making the new all-time high. So in this case, if Bitcoin did swing the lower low structure and we do start to see that occur, I'd be looking somewhere around 55 to 55.5 or so, about $1,000 discount off of this low initially. But Bitcoin would need to quickly regain it and not close below it on the daily. Otherwise, that would open up the $53,000 to $50,000 target down below. Now, if Bitcoin can get above the daily basis band, that would be encouraging. If you have never seen Bollinger Bands before, or if you're fairly new to them, this is a 20 simple. That is what's called the basis band. And then we have the standard deviations to the upside and downside. So to give us some price volatility levels away from the 20 simple. In this case, the upper first standard deviation is right around the area that needs to be reclaimed on the daily to set a low side structure on a close, in my opinion, and resolve this to at least go and test in and around $64,000 to $65,000 and attempt to break this downtrending high here at 65.5. So we do need to see a closure above that, of course, if it doesn't happen all in one shot. That's coming in at 63,678. So roughly right around this high at $64,000. So we do need to see that area covered. You can see the upper second standard deviation usually first past the daily upper second and lower second standard deviations in the very low term timeframes. We're talking 5-minute, 15-minute, possibly even hourly into 4-hour, do act as either support at the lower second or resistance around the upper second. Now, this would be as those timeframes relate to where the bands are on the daily. So in this case, this is coming in right around that high at 65 to 65.5. We need to see closures above it to get expansion. Now, I would be looking for expansion and a bit of a price replace band kind of a look here, right up to around that $67,000 high here. And then above there, I'd be looking for expansion into the overhead resistance around $68,000 to $70,000 or so. Now, I don't really have a lot of time to get into some of the other stuff here, on the longer term time frames, but I am going to show you a few things. We've got a shift back down. This is an initial cross. If Bitcoin closes anywhere below 62,300 today, that is going to be pressured down. 12-hour is pointed up on any closures above 60,800. So you need to see, roughly 61, 61 and a half probably hold up, and then Bitcoin start moving to the upside in the next little while here during today's Wednesday candle. The 2-day did not close, but it will be closing with today's daily, and I would keep an eye on around 61,234, so 61,200 to 61,250 or so. It is pointed to the upside. If we do see any kind of daily closure below there even, it will be turning to the downside. 3-day is tentatively pointed to the upside here on its projection. Now we have 3 days to go to close this. We've got all of today's candle plus 2 days. So it is coming off of or trying to regain, I should say. It's coming off of the lower second, lower third area, trying to regain the lower first right here at the support at 61,500 to 600 or so. It's kind of right around where we're seeing some other things come in. Above there, I'd be looking to $65,000 on the 3-day, but this is going to be probably a long 3 days. We can see that any closures above 59,862, however, would give this an initial cross back to the upside. So that is a little bit encouraging for the bulls. The other thing to note here is on the 3-day, let's see on the 2-day what we're getting. Yeah, rejection at the simple moving average here. What's the daily looking like? Lost it, trying to regain it right now in the lower term time frames. Yeah, so the 3-day has the potential, if Bitcoin does move up in price, I would be watching the daily closes as they relate to the 3-day candles and see if we do get any closures above there. So that is going to be an area of interest. And then we have a few other things going on here. We've got the weekly. I do want to draw your attention to, again, if you missed some of the live streams and or Monday's video, you got, or actually it would have been last week's video on Thursday. We've got the basis band here on the weekly coming in around 57,600 or so. So a swing below the weekly basis band, I'm not worried about. Any closures below it that lose the wick low at 56,500 would be a problem. Targeting this next support area at $53,000 to $50,000, and of course the $68,000 to $70,000 area is the weekly upper first. So to the upside, if Bitcoin does start breaking the downtrend, especially on a daily close, that's the first primary area of resistance above, $65,500, $67,000 or so. Now there was one other thing, and I'm trying to give me a second here to kind of come in. Let's see what's coming in line with some of this stuff here. There it is, the 2-day. That's what it was. All right, so the 2-day does, if Bitcoin were to close the next 2-day candle, I'd mentioned anywhere below 61,250 or so, it would be pressure to the downside. Of course, we would have, trending, we would have Stoke flipping down, at least initially, giving us those initial targets down to around that, 58.8, 58.5 area to around $59,000 right by the lows here of the March of 2021 monthly quarterly area. But down below there, you can see the lower third standard deviation is coming in around that 55,000 or so. So as it relates to the daily, if we do start seeing that lower low swung, be aware that there is some volatility levels of interest right around the lower low right now. Would be good enough for a pop up, I think. Probably see some bigger volume coming in, but it would still need to regain this current support zone. And the only way that we need to be looking for that, just as a reminder, any closure is basically below $60,000, and we're looking at the lower low area getting run down to possibly run a bit lower than it. And then, of course, if it doesn't regain this area between 58.8 and 61,350, then I would be looking, if it wasn't already heading that way, I'd be looking down to $53,000 to $50,000 or so. All right, you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. This was not a quick take, by the way. This was almost 20 minutes. My apologies. But yeah, you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.